Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our virtual book party this evening. We are excited to share with you some of the things that we have read recently. As a reminder, if this is your first book party, closed captioning is available for this event. You can turn it on or off in the toolbar at the bottom of your screen. We will send you, I will email all of you a list of the books that are discussed this evening at the end of the event. So again, you don't need to frantically try to write everything down. So those will all be available at the end. We'll spend about a minute or so talking about each book and then moving on. And we have a few other announcements this evening that we were going to talk about as well. But let's start with introductions of who we have with us this evening. My name is Catherine. I'm just hosting this evening, not book talking. I'm one of the teen librarians and the coordinator for the librarian team. And we'll just go in alphabetical order and see how well that we all do with that.
You're muted. I'm muted. I got the alphabet, but not the unmuting. I'm Allison Cochran, and I'm an adult advisory librarian.
I'm Erica Schimmel, and I am a teen outreach librarian.
And Pamela, another adult advisory services librarian.
I'm Tanya, I'm a youth services librarian.
And I'm Tegan, I'm a reference librarian at Coble.
Excellent. So we will all get into our book talks later, but first we're going to tell you about a couple of other things that are going on at the library right now. And Allison is going to chat about our adult reading program.
Okay, so we are so excited. We have an adult reading program coming this fall, October 1st through 31st. It's called Read It Forward. And for every book you read or listen to, you can put in an entry at any of our branches or online, and you'll be entered into a drawing to give a donation to a literacy-based organization. So you read and we will donate. So you won't be getting a specific prize, but you will get to vote on which literacy organization. That they all serve Colorado in some ways, and we're very excited, and there'll be lots of information on the website coming soon. And it's still me talking. Okay, this is Light on Bone by Catherine Lasky. Catherine Lasky is primarily known for her children's books, which she's written many, but this is her first adult mystery. It's set in New Mexico in the 1930s, and the sleuth figuring out the mystery is none other than Georgia O'Keeffe. Not the kind of older Georgia we picture when you think about Georgia O'Keeffe in Mexico, but a fairly young one when she's first visiting New Mexico. It features the Lindberghs who are there, possible German spies in the lead up to World War II, a charming and handsome local sheriff who interacts quite well with Georgia, and some mysteries from Georgia O'Keeffe's past. The best part is the atmospheric setting. I actually don't remember too much of the details of the mystery, but you will want to pack your bags and head to New Mexico after reading this book. The descriptions of the landscape, the lighting, I'm ready to go. That's Light on Bone by Catherine Lasky.
So this is the Department of Rare Books and Special Collections by Eva Jerzik, and this is a mystery for people who love books. Liesel has been a librarian in the Rare Books department of a prestigious university for years. She mostly does the behind-the-scenes work, while the director, Christopher, does the public side, like fundraising, schmoozing donors, until Christopher has a stroke and Liesel has to step in as director, a tenure which gets off to a rocky start very quickly. The university is known for having a bunch of old, priceless manuscripts, including their most recent acquisition, a rare Bible. But when Liesel agrees to let a scientist do some dating tests on the Bible before the upcoming grand showing with stakeholders, she discovers the Bible is missing from Christopher's safe. And even worse, a search for the missing Bible reveals 2 other priceless manuscripts are also missing. And since she is now acting as the library director, it's her responsibility to find these books without the help of police. This book is a bit of a slow burn mystery that's really intriguing. A lot of the charm in this book lies in the character development. We get to know Liesel really well through present-day storytelling and flashbacks. So that was the Department of Rare Books and Special Collections.
Hello, everybody. My first choice is a really exciting suspense novel. One morning, the warden of the Pronghorn Correctional Facility in the Nevada desert receives a call telling her to open the gates and release the 600 prisoners, or a busload of family members of the staff will be killed. These are prisoners convicted of the worst crimes, and she does let them go. A manhunt for all of them, of course, starts right up. In the meantime, Celine Osborne, death row supervisor, there are a lot of people on death row, attempts to track down an escapee who was convicted of murdering his family and with whom she has a connection. This escapee, John Cradle, hurries to use this brief time of freedom to prove his innocence, which he has steadfastly maintained all along. Phew, you are in for a ride.
All right, bear with me, I'm losing my voice. My first book is The Last House on the Street, and this is a little bit historical fiction and a little bit of a mystery, and it goes back and forth between two different time perspectives. The first time is in 1965, and we follow a woman named Ellie around. Ellie is going to spend her summer break as a volunteer to help register Black voters, and her story is about kind of the terrible things and the racism that was happening during that time. The other time period is in 2010, and we meet a woman named Kayla. Kayla has just moved into a new house in a new neighborhood. She's not excited about it because her husband actually died building the house. And Kayla finds out that she has a neighbor, someone named Ellie, and it just so happens to be the Ellie from the other time period. Their two stories weave together and bring out big secrets and big truths. That's The Last House on the Street.
All right, so we've got some exciting news that we've got a new book club starting at Coble Library on Monday, October 10th at 6:30 p.m. It is the Forever Young Book Club. We are going to be reading teen books for adults. So all the books that I'm going to talk about tonight are teen books that have adult appeal. The first book that we'll talk about is also going to be read for our first meeting of our book club. It is The Lost Girls by Sonia Hartle. Holly has been a vampire stuck at age 16 since 1987. She thought she was turning for love, to spend eternity with a boy who told her she was the only one. But he abandoned her, even though she is now bound to him and has to move wherever he goes, and for some reason he's brought her back home. While Holly is trying her best to move on from Elton as much as she can, and trying to make ends meet while working the night shift at Taco Bell, she is approached by two other teen vampire girls who have some interesting things to tell her. Elton is not just the guy who broke her heart and made sure she was stuck with awful crimped hair forever, but he is all around bad news. The only way the girls can be free of him and make sure he doesn't turn another girl is to team up and find a way to take him down. There are some really good themes for discussion in this book that we will plan to explore at our first Forever Young book club meeting.
Okay. 10 Tomatoes That Changed the World by William Alexander. It's my nonfiction choice for this. It is a history of the tomato, which maybe you didn't think you needed, but it touches on all aspects of history: exploration, colonialism, class structure, culinary history, industrialization. For instance, did you know that they invented the tin can many years before they invented the can opener, which sort of slowed down adaptation of that particular device? There's sections on things like the San Marzano tomato and the many copycat versions, and how you can't trust what's on the label of all those tomatoes you buy from Whole Foods and things. They might be San Marzano tomatoes, but maybe not. And the chapter on the development of different variants was fascinating. I just love these kind of books that tie in at an aspect of like the history of one thing to all of history. And I believe Erica has another one of just like that, but a very different topic.
I do indeed. This is my nonfiction choice. This is Skirts, Fashioning Modern Femininity in the 20th Century by Kimberly Chrisman Campbell. When I picked up this book, I fully expected just a history of skirts, like a recounting of different skirts throughout the years. And I got that. But what I also got was a fascinating analysis of the social context in which different types of skirts were popular. So how skirts have shaped and been shaped by changing ideas of femininity and what it means to be a woman. Chrisman Campbell focuses on 10 different styles of skirts that have been impactful in some way, including the little black dress, the wrap dress, the mini skirt, and even the poodle skirt, which was not named after the animal, but was instead named after the fabric that the skirt was originally made out of. And adding the dog to the skirt later was just a fun play on that. The author talks about the first appearance of these different skirts, initial reactions, target audiences, drama and scandals, and there was more drama and scandal associated with skirts than you might expect. And in addition, she looks at these skirts through different lenses, including race, class, and the intersection of those lenses with those ideas of gender. So it's written in a very engaging style, just fascinating, and the images included in the book were really interesting.
Carolina Moonset by Matt Goldman. Matt Goldman has written a lovely family story with a bit of a mystery. Joey Green comes to South Carolina to stay with his father and give his mother a break from caring for his father. Marshall Green is suffering from dementia. And as sometimes happens with this disease, he's losing his short-term memory, but his past is in clear focus. He begins talking about events from many years ago, including secrets which should perhaps have stayed hidden. And then one of Marshall's most hated neighbors is killed one evening when Marshall had gotten out of the house. I found the writing wonderful, the characters well developed, the beachy South Carolina setting very atmospheric, and Joey even has a little romance with the woman next door. This book has it all. Carolina Moonset by Matt Goldman.
All right, this is They Drown Our Daughters by KATRINA MONROE. This is for those of you that like Gothic horror, and this one also has a piece of a mystery. It's about a woman named Meredith, and Meredith grew up in a town called Cape Disappointment. Cape Disappointment is known for being haunted, creepy, lots of legends, but Meredith hasn't been there in a long time. She left as soon as she could, but now she's returning to Cape Disappointment with her daughter to live with her mom, who has Alzheimer's. Meredith has tried to ignore the rumors about the town and the hauntings, and that's because they specifically tie to her family. It was said long ago that one mom drowned her daughter, and ever since then, bad things have happened to the women in her family. And Meredith is determined to do everything she can to protect her mom and protect her daughter. This one was kind of a book that twists and turns. You don't necessarily know where it's going. So if that sounds interesting to you, check out They Drown Our Daughters.
All right, here is The Grace Year by Kim Liggett. There is a lot of content to process within this book. We enter a place called Garner County, where girls wear white ribbons in their hair and are branded with their father's marks. Around their 16th year, the girls swap their white ribbons for red, go through a veiling ceremony to be marked for engagement to marriage, and if they aren't chosen for marriage, they will be assigned to labor work when they return. And they are sent off for a year called the Grace Year, where they are expected to release all their magic and come back to society as docile women. Not everyone returns, but those who do swap their red ribbons for black, and if an engaged girl does not return, her fiancé will choose another wife from the remaining girls. No one talks about the Grace Year, so it is unclear what really happens out there and why the girls who return are so emotionally and physically scarred. In this novel, readers follow Tierney through her Grace Year, and all I can say is that so many of the revelations are quite shocking and leave so much to sit and think about. I reached the end of the book feeling pretty melancholy, despite the hopeful ending. It's dark and gory. It's very much a tale of survival against the odds. But what is so odd about the Grace Year is that it's about women going wild, being jealous, viciously hurting each other, and yet it somehow manages to be a celebration of women and the ties between them. It's quite incredible how Liggett takes these women to their very worst so that we can eventually appreciate them at their best. This is for fans of The Handmaid's Tale, Lord of the Flies, and Hunger Games.
Okay, this is The Mountain in the Sea by Ray Naylor. It's coming out on October 4th. Many of you know that right off in January, I declared Remarkably Bright Creatures my favorite book of this year, and that has not changed. But what has surprised me is that I loved another book about octopus. I didn't know I was a fan of octopus-based fiction. It's a totally different book. This one is set in the near future on islands off of Vietnam and China. And what if the highly intelligent octopus are developing language and culture? What does it mean if a silent creature and more is developing language? How does that work? What does it mean if they start interacting with each other? And more importantly, how angry are they at humans for how we've treated them and done the damage, what damage we've done to them over the years? It was amazing. Yay, octopus fiction.
This is Under the Whispering Door by T.J. Klune. And if you enjoyed Klune's other books, like The House on the Cerulean Sea, then this romantic fantasy is definitely for you. This one begins in perhaps an unexpected way with the main character's death. Wallace is a 40-year-old workaholic lawyer who's a bit abrasive and rude, which is on full display in the opening scenes when he fires a crying employee. Shortly after this firing, Wallace keels over in his office and dies. He wakes up at his funeral and discovers that one person attending the funeral can see him. May is a reaper who's going to take Wallace to the place that will help him start the process of crossing over, which turns out to be a tea shop. This tea shop is owned by a man named Hugo, whose job it is to help souls cross through the door to get to the other side. Literally, there is a door that souls cross through when they feel that they are ready to move on, which Wallace is not. Since he is not ready to move on and he can't leave the tea shop, he sticks around for a while and starts developing relationships with Hugo, May, and Hugo's grandfather, Nelson, until another soul shows up and puts Wallace's stay in jeopardy. This was a sweet romance that also had a lot of humor and dealt with emotional issues such as grief, moving on, and regrets in a really poignant, touching way.
Here's my nonfiction offering this time, Bird Brother by Rodney Stotts. It's a short book, but full of interesting topics. Rodney grew up in poverty in Washington, D.C., and we all know how his life could have gone. But because he was chosen to be part of an environmental conservation corps tasked with cleaning up the Anacostia River in D.C., his path took an unusual turn. After the river was clean enough to harbor fish, they reintroduced bald eagles back to our nation's capital, where they should have been all along. Rodney was fascinated by these birds and became one of only 25 black falconers in the United States. Read this if you're interested in a glimpse of a life very different from yours. If you want to be reminded of how important cleaning up polluted sites is, and birds. Bird Brother by Rodney Stotts.
All right, this is Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. This is probably my favorite book that I've chosen today. This is a thriller mystery, very twisty. It's being compared to Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None. It's about a woman named Daisy. Daisy comes from a very dysfunctional family. They're not close at all. And in fact, she hasn't even seen really any of them in years. That's all changing today, though, because Daisy is on her way to her Nana's 80th birthday party. Nana has this really cool, they describe it as like a Gothic house by the sea on a tiny little island. And when the tide comes in there, you can't leave the house for 8 hours. The tide just so happens to be coming in that night, and so Daisy will be trapped with her family overnight. Everything is going as good as it can be until Nana is found dead at the stroke of midnight in the kitchen. They know that one of them had to have done it since the tide is blocking everyone else. But then every hour after that, someone continues to die. This book, I had no idea what was coming at the ending, and I absolutely loved it. And so that is Daisy Darker.
Here we've got Girl in Pieces by Kathleen Glasgow. This book comes with some content and trigger warnings for self-harm, substance abuse, and parental. Catherine finds herself in a mental hospital after being dumped at the door when she tried to kill herself. It takes her a little while to begin to heal enough to speak, but with the help of some caring doctors, she starts to feel safe and as if she might be able to live. That is until they tell her she's well enough to be discharged into the care of her abusive mother. As soon as they get around the corner, her mom gives her some money, as well as a letter from a friend telling her she can come down to Arizona to stay at his place while he's on tour with his band. His landlord tells Catherine she has 2 weeks to find a job and a different place to live. And it seems this might be just the push she needs. Until she falls into a relationship with Riley, who was a semi-famous musician until his substance abuse issues got in the way. When one of Catherine's fellow patients is released from the hospital and comes to visit, Catherine is disappointed she isn't in better shape. She uses that disappointment to push herself to get better and let go of the toxic relationships and habits she's acquired, because she realizes she really does want more for her life, and she doesn't need someone else to be the reason she strives for better things. She only needs to want those things for herself. While this book is fairly dark and emotional, I think it did have a hopeful ending. There are a lot of themes to unpack that would make for really good discussion or just food for thought, depending on your own capacity.
Okay, the next book is Our Missing Hearts by Celeste Ng. This is coming out October 4th. I mean, it's going to be a huge book without my endorsement, but here I go. Anyway, it's set in the near future, and conditions in this country have completely deteriorated. Climate change, race relations, political divides, things are pretty bad, and we blame China for all of those problems. And that leads to a general just hatred of all Asian people, and it's even really government-endorsed discrimination against anyone of Asian descent is okay, including the practice of them taking some Asian children out of their homes and placing them with white families to be raised more white. Like, a young boy during this time grows up thinking his mother has abandoned him. But she is of Chinese descent, and she was a famous poet, and lines from her poetry are being used in the resistance movement. So did she abandon the family, or did she leave to protect them? Now he sets out to find her, and this is his journey to find her. It's a hard read, but set aside some quiet time, some tissues, and read this important book. That's Our Missing Hearts, Celeste Ng.
This is The Inheritance of ORQUÍDEA Divina. It's part fantasy, part magical realism, part multi-generational family drama. Members of the Montoya family have always felt somewhat controlled by the magical Orquídea, who immigrated from Ecuador to a small town called Four Rivers and established her family there. The family is largely scattered across the US now, but they return to Four Rivers when Orquídea summons them, sending invitations to her funeral by bird. Along with those invitations is a message telling them to come collect their inheritance. Nobody really knows what to expect because Orquídea has always been pretty private and even secretive, especially about her life before Four Rivers, but they all come back, only to witness not Orquídea's death, but a metamorphosis. She also gives them each a gift and tells them to keep their magic safe, a message which makes more sense when we jump into the future and find out that someone from Orquídea's past has it out for the entire family and has started picking them off one by one. The magic system in this book was fascinating, and weaving between time periods to learn more about Orquídea's history and journey and the whole family dynamic was poignant and relatable. That was The Inheritance of ORQUÍDEA Divina.
Oh, Mickey 7 by Edward Ashton. This book makes me smile. It's a sci-fi suggestion. Mickey Barnes, fleeing some bad guys on his planet, volunteers as an expendable on a mission to find other habitable planets. An expendable is someone who will be recreated if he's killed. And as this book begins, we're up to the seventh Mickey 7. After Mickey 7 ventures beyond safety on this new planet, his colleagues think he's been killed by the local creatures called creepers. But he has not died, and when he makes his way back, he discovers that Mickey 8 has already been created. The Mickeys must keep the fact that there are now 2 of them hidden. There should only be 1. And they need to try to survive on the rations for only 1 also. This book is just really fun, very enjoyable, sci-fi light. The second Mickey book, Antimatter Blues, will be published next year, continuing the story of Mickey, one of the Mickeys, I guess. It's for fans of the Murderbot series and for those who want a break from heavy literary novels. This is just light. Mickey 7, Edward Ashton.
This is Something Fabulous by Alexis Hall. If you have not read Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall, I highly recommend that one. That's how I found this one. This one is a very, very funny laugh out loud romance, and it's about a duke named Valentine. Valentine is supposed to be getting married to a woman named Arabella Tarleton. He's supposed to marry her tomorrow. He's all ready, except for the problem is that Arabella does not want to be married to Valentine. So much so and that she decides to run away, sneaks out in the middle of the night. Valentine is woken up the next morning by Arabella's twin brother. His name is Bonnie, and Bonnie insists that him and Valentine have to go on this adventure, find Arabella, and bring them back so that they can get married like they're supposed to. But on the way, Bonnie and Valentine start to bond, even though they think that they hate each other, and a romance starts to bloom. This also kind of gave me Bridgerton vibes, if you like that time period. So that is Something Fabulous by Alexis Hall.
I was blown away by the beauty of Yusuf Azim is Not a Hero by Sadia Faruqi. I love books that can make me feel things, and this one sure is powerful. I greatly appreciated the juxtaposition of diary entries from a young Muslim teen boy in the aftermath of 9/11/2001, with the experience of a young Muslim teen boy 20 years later. The comments of how the aftermath of that tragedy still resonates with people in America today from all walks of life, and how it is still like a wound that never healed, just really hit home. I found myself angry and sad and hopeful all throughout this entire book, as it should be when talking about such a subject as how Muslims have been treated in America since 9/11. It's been 20 years, but still so many people treat an entire group of people with so much suspicion, mistrust, fear, and hatred because of actions taken by a small group of extremists. I also super loved having Yusuf be a 12-year-old boy, a wonderful age to begin recognizing the world around you and the realities that come with it. It is so tough to start to realize that while your parents and the other adults around you take care of as much as they can't put a stop to everything. There's a very vocal hate group in this book, and I had very strong feelings throughout their interactions that Yusuf was recognizing how upset and powerless the adults in his life were feeling. There was really only so much they could do. There were moments when he recognized the hurt and anger in his mother's eyes, not only from the actions themselves, but from the fact that she could no longer fully protect him from so many issues that he was having to face. While this is a middle grade book, I would say it is a brilliant read for adults as well, as it is extremely thought-provoking. Also, Yusuf is just a dang amazing kiddo, and him and his community made me want to be even more of a better person, because they're right, love can overcome hate.
Oh, how I loved this book, How Not to Drown in a Glass of Water by Angie Cruz. It has such a unique structure. The main character is a Dominican immigrant who lost her job in New York City that she'd had for 20 years when the factory closed down, and she's sent to a senior job resource center where the counselor says, "Tell me about yourself." And Kara Romero does just that. She tells everything from her whole life in detail. And throughout the various sessions she has with this counselor, we learn more and more of her backstory. Interspersed between those, there are legal forms to be filled out, job applications, resumes, rent assistance forms to be filled out. And Kara just answers the questions regardless of the formality of them. Why do you want this job? I need the money. What was your father's profession? I don't know. My mother wouldn't tell me. You could not get any information out of that woman type things. She is hilarious. And if you have ever applied for a job, interviewed anyone for a job, filled out an online form, you will love this book. It was kind of the perfect balance of the serious issues Kara was facing and just amazing humor. I saw Pamela has since read it, and yes, wonderful.
This is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. I loved Zevin's The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry, so I was super excited to read this book, and it did not disappoint. Sam and Sadie met when they were 11. Sam was in the hospital because of a bad foot, and Sadie was visiting her sister. Sam and Sadie hit it off, especially bonding over their love of video games. And soon Sadie was visiting Sam almost every day, and they played games and talked for hours. Unbeknownst to Sam, though, Sadie also counted the hours they spent together as volunteer hours towards her bat mitzvah service requirement. As you can imagine, their friendship takes quite a hit when he finds out, and their break continues until they run into each other years later when they are in college. Sadie went on to study video games, and when she gives Sam a copy of a game she created, he is hooked and decides that he and Sadie, along with Sam's roommate Marks, should create video games, which leads to a successful partnership, but also years of turbulent friendship. I really enjoyed the nostalgia this book brought up with references to different games. For instance, Sam and Sadie have a running Oregon Trail joke that was very funny. But I also appreciated how the book considers how video games can provide havens and connections for people. It was a great read, interesting, engaging, funny, great for anyone who enjoys friendship novels. So this was Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin.
Slow Horses by Mick Herron. Excuse me. This is the first in a mystery series. I know there's a lot of us out there who really enjoy British mysteries, and this is the first in a series that takes place in London. It takes place in London at Slough House, where washed-up MI5 spies are sent to, to while away what's left of their failed careers. They've screwed up royally, and will do anything to redeem themselves and hope to get back on the good graces. Maybe they messed up an op badly and can't be trusted anymore. Some of them got in the way of an ambitious colleague and had the rug yanked out from under them. Maybe they just got too dependent on the bottle. Not unusual in this line of work. One thing they all have in common, though, is that they all want to be back in the action, which doesn't always work out so well. I thought this novel had the perfect balance of good writing, background information, well-rounded characters known as the slow horses, action, humor, and spying. It's an excellent first book to set up the series. Slow Horses by Mick Herron.
This is Hidden Pictures, and this is probably my second favorite book on this list. It's another mystery, of course, that's what I love. Lots of twists and turns in this one as well. It's being compared to fans of Stranger Things, and it's about a woman named Mallory. Mallory has had a really tough last few years, but she's determined to get her life back on track. She just got out of rehab, and she is taking a job as a nanny, kind of out in the country for a 5-year-old boy named Teddy. Mallory is nervous at first. She's not sure the parents are going to like her, but Mallory ends up loving the job and ends up loving Teddy. He's a very sweet boy, and he loves to draw. But one day, Teddy's drawings go from being sweet and innocent to being very sinister. The first drawing he draws is a man in a forest dragging a woman's dead body, or so it seems. Teddy's artwork keeps becoming increasingly more scary, and Mallory thinks that maybe something is going on, and maybe Teddy knows something that she needs to dig into deeper. So as Mallory continues to look into what these pictures could mean, she finds things that she's not quite ready to find. That is Hidden Pictures.
To end on a more positive note than some of my other reads, I'm going to finish with American Royals by Catherine McGee. American Royals is a fun alternate history story. What if, instead of choosing to elect a president every 4 years, America had instated a monarchy? What might our country look like with a royal family? What might the world have looked like? Would this have protected or continued monarchies around the world? This story appears to be set in around our current times with current technology and follows the teenage children of the current monarch. Beatrice is next in line and said to be the first queen to rule in America. Her father is doing his best to prepare her, even though she'll be setting a new precedent. Her younger siblings are twins, Sam and Jeff, whose best friend is a commoner, and her mother works in the palace. We do get Nina's perspective as an outsider of the royal family, as she tries to balance being best friends with royalty, but also a commoner who does not have a lot of money and does not want to seem like a gold digger. There's also Daphne, who is dating the prince. Her perspective is interesting because she's newer royalty, so some people do spurn her. Think of old money and the nouveau riche. She's also scheming her way into the royal family to really establish her family's title and their right to be among the other royals. There's a lot of good teen drama and romance in this series, while also giving some good food for thought on what life might be like with an American royal family.
Those are all of the books that we have this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you found some new things that you're excited to read. And have a great night, everyone.